Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Anime review. This one's going to be for episode 245. So overall I thought this was a solid episode. A little bit of a, episode of two halves. I thought the first half wasn't like amazing and sort of made part of like the previous episode and part of what they were doing right at the start feel a little bit redundant just because they revealed that the villains, they happen to have this other secret passage that counters their plan to stop the main army, and it's just felt a little bit like what was kind of the point of all this setup for that. A little bit of a kind of time waster thing. But once the action got going, it wasn't incredible action, but at least they started to get the characters using some jutsu and so on. They had little character arcs going on in that the Heavy Chigo one, her leaving now that she's free, they immediately had her sort of reflecting on basically what do I do after this. She's having memories of the fun times with the people around her, and they really seem to emphasize through like Kyoho and Metal the idea that she actually likes to be around people and doesn't like to be lonely. So they sort of in a way like simplified her arc. It wasn't anything crazy, but it feels like that's now done, and at least Heavy Chigo has had a little bit of development now and she's fully on side. It'll be interesting to see if they kind of emphasize her reaction to what has happened to Kagura at the end, and maybe she makes some move because of this. But it is nice to sort of resolve that thread and just she's here with us. Other than that, it was basically the fight against Seiren's lieutenant guy, who has a somewhat unique jutsu, I guess. He has a kind of powerful water cyclone jutsu, and he can also absorb blood from people to fuel it in terms of water, which is kind of cool, a little bit of a kind of bloodbending style thing. It's obviously a little bit like, that seems very, very powerful, but then it also seems powerful because our characters aren't really doing all that much to counter it. Again, there's a few moments in this episode where it's definitely like characters you can use jutsu. Like you could actually fire something at that to try and stop this, but they obviously didn't want to animate that. This gets sort of, there's an initial engagement that not much happens. Then there's a fight in the village when he uses the technique again. And Kagura actually steps up to stop him. So he finally uses the powers of the ninja blade that he has. And he puts like seemingly like all of his chakra into it, makes it huge, and basically slices through the tornado, which was actually quite cool. They do reveal though that the guy sort of like jumped out of it last second, and so he's right there next to Kagura, picks him up, and we end with this, what seems to be like a standoff, and they'll end just on the cliffhanger of like what happens here. But no, he gets them to drop their weapons, but then is like, I never said I'd let him go if you dropped your weapons. And he stabs Kagura straight through the back, comes out the front of his stomach. Pretty brutal, like, looks like a deadly blow. The preview and a lot of the characters' reactions definitely got across that, like, I don't think he can recover from this. And the title of the next episode seems rather ominous. So I don't know, are they going to kill off Kagura or not? It would be something that would make this arc very, very memorable. The thing that makes me say no is just that it doesn't really feel like we're particularly right at the end of the arc, and that there's still all these other high-ups in the Fanato that we haven't had fights with yet. There's still the whole, we have to reintroduce like Ikada and do all that stuff. And I can't see them having that happen immediately following this if they commit to Kagura being dead. So I'm assuming he has to get, healed or just patched up slightly, but maybe out of the battle for the rest of the arc going forward. I'm not sure necessarily what to make of this, because if the arc was a little smaller in scale and this was the final battle and they maybe emphasized the main villains a little bit more, I could see them actually going for the idea of killing Kagura, but because there is a lot left to do, I don't think they'll do it. So the question is obviously, how does he heal? How is he going to be healed from this? Like I suppose we have a few characters who have maybe a little bit of medical ninjutsu, but I don't think that's going to be enough for this, of course. So what's the deal here in terms of like how does this get fixed? It feels like this is maybe an opportunity for Boruto to either use the karma mark or, because it's the anime, maybe a Jogan appearance. Because again, that sort of has unknown powers. It might have the ability to heal him. I think based on recent manga stuff, they probably can't really do the whole Boruto with the karma mark powers heals him, just because that would be very contradictory of what happens there. So there's kind of a little bit of a big question there around like how is Kagura going to survive this like brutal like wound here. Like this is the type of wound that like is the death blow for like many other characters. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, like I said, it's weird that they've gone for something so big with not actually one of the, I think, main kind of villain characters. That this is just like Seiren's lieutenant. And he says a few interesting things, like in his mind, like Seiren will never walk again. I'm like, oh, like I'm not sure if I got necessarily that the injury was like that bad, and that like has like he damaged her spinal cord or something like that. Is he thinking she's going to die, or she's just permanently injured? What's going on there? Because like I said, the whole Ikada thing, like they have to come back to that. That's a major plot. They have to come back to Amari, and then of course there's the other two sort of like brothers of Ikada and so on, that they also have to come back to. So, you know, they tease like obviously Chojuro is in the middle of a battle that still hasn't quite started yet. That's a very slow paced arc happening in the background. Hopefully that they'll commit to doing something with that going forward, because it looks like they're really teasing the idea that at least at this point in the arc, this is going to be, this upcoming episode next week is going to be like one of the big ones, and that they look, usually when they do the preview like that, when they only show a couple of character face shots and don't really tell you too much about what's going on in the episode, they're usually the ones where like they're going kind of relatively big with the animation. And it feels like you have to, like, Boruto looks like he's going to have a reaction to what has happened here, and this guy, the lieutenant guy, feels like a villain that you can actually like kill off here if you need to, because he's obviously not one of the absolute main characters, and he's done some pretty bad stuff so far. Other than that, like, you know, there's more metal Hebichigo stuff. Again, I'm not really sure if they're quite going for the shipping style of things, because I feel we'd be doing a little bit more sort of like blushing type stuff, whereas she seems to have much the same reaction to stuff that like Kyoho says as metal. So they probably just need to do a little bit more if they want to lean more into like what was their relationship there between them. But just Hebichigo is back, I guess. Beyond that, I don't really have too much else to say. It's just waiting to see like what exactly they're doing with the end of the arc. Like, how close are we to the end? Is this as big of an event as we think it is? Because I was watching through the episode and I was just kind of like, okay, this is solid. And then they do the Kagura stab scene, and it's like, oh, we're kind of doing something here. Like, we gave Kagura the big moment where he finally uses the powers of the sword, cuts down the tornado jutsu, and then he gets stabbed, like seemingly mortally wounded. That's kind of big, but I'm not sure if it's meant to be as big as I think it is, and that's just a bit of a weird thing with the arc and how the flow of it seems to be going. But I think that's basically all I want to say about this one, because there was a lot of action and a lot of sort of like, you know, average action. There's not too much to say about it. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode, especially with the Kagura thing. where do you think they're going with this? Like, are they going to kill him off? Or where is this going to lead? Because I there's a lot of reasons why I don't think they're going to kill him. Like I said, there's still a lot of the arc still to go. I think the ultimate arc for Kagura is obviously that he's going to become the Kage of his village for the Boruto era. And there's just like still a lot of like dynamics that are going on there. He feels like one of the more sort of important kind of characters who's been introduced through the anime only arcs. So, you know, there'd be impact if you did kill him off, but I feel there's more benefit to have by keeping him around, just because he's like a ally in a different village. But who knows what they're going to do. So let me know your thoughts on that. But other than that, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.